say thank you to everybody for joining us today. And thank you, Cathy, especially to you for taking the time to be here. And thank you for also being one of the speakers in the upcoming fall program. So really excited to have you come back another time.
Oh, I'm honored.
Yeah. And for those of you who may not know Cathy, Cathy Casey has had a wide range of experience sharing this understanding. She's worked with blue chip companies and organizations sharing the understanding, all the way to doing social service work, working in prison system with veterans, with inmates. And some of the work that you're most known for, Cathy, is the work that you've done in the California prison system, which is, so inspiring and heartwarming. So I hope to hear some of those stories today if they come up. So thank you.
Oh,
And so, as I was thinking about this call with you today, what I was thinking about, I know that you've shared it before, but I love how you sort of came to the understanding, but also how you came to sort of your experience of meeting Sydney Banks and kind of your really healthy skepticism, I think, about all of this. And I really appreciate your grounded nature that, is just so practical and common sense, but also has such tremendous depth. So I wondered if you're open to it, if that would be a good place for you to start, just sharing a little bit about that healthy skepticism as you came across the understanding.
And I truly, well, I would say even beyond skepticism, I was upset.
Okay.
I haven't talked about this in a while, so let me think about how I want to talk about this. Well, Roger Mills brought the 3 principles to Santa Clara County, and through the Department of Alcohol and Drug Services, so within county government, this was brought in. And so when I went to the first training, I really got impacted, so much so that I just redirected all of my work. I was doing an internship towards my MFT, psychotherapy internship. So everything went in the direction of the principles. So it went from how I was trained through a master's degree program to on a dime teaching the principles. And so I was out there teaching this to inmates and my clients in my internship and a little bit with the county employees. And about 9 months into it, or 10 months into me teaching this, I was listening to George Pransky up in Berkeley, and he was talking about, there's going to be a speaker in Hawaii named Sydney Banks. He's the one that we all learned this from, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden I'm like, well, who is Sydney Banks? And I was with my colleague, Faye, and she and I looked at each other, who are they talking about? And then, George went on to say, he's our spiritual founder, whatever. I forget the words he used. And my first thought was, oh, here we go. There's some weird guru guy behind this whole thing. And I got hoodwinked again because I'd been through this a few times. And I thought my professional integrity, and we have money on programs, and I was just really upset. Like, who is this guy? And he was speaking in Hawaii. So I looked to Faye and I thought, we've got to go check this guy out. And she looked at me like, what, we're going to Hawaii? I said, yes, we are going to Hawaii because I got to know who this guy is. And my mentor, Roger, wasn't around. And for some reason, I didn't even bother calling him. I was just so upset. That was it. Because I'd never heard of this guy. I'm doing this for 10 months. So we fly to Hawaii, and he was speaking at a hotel, near Waikiki Beach. And so we're all in this room in a hotel, no windows. And it was kind of lecture style where, how the chairs kind of gradually go up. And they had a special chair, and he came out, and this Hawaiian lady did put the lei on him and did the ceremony on him. And I'm like, now I'm really freaking out. So I'm sitting there like, well, at least we're getting a trip to Hawaii out of this. It's not a total loss. When I get home, I'll just kind of undo everything I'm doing. I mean, this is where my head was at. So I'm sitting there, and of course, the place you could hear it pin drop everybody's just sitting there, and he was just sitting there. And I was just really like, really, really not happy. And so finally he said to the audience, would somebody please ask me a question? And so somebody did ask him a question, and then he started speaking, and he started speaking to the principals. And I'm listening, I'm like, well, yeah, that's what I've been teaching. Okay, that's cool. And so I'm listening, feeling like, okay, maybe this isn't so bad. And then finally a woman raised her hand, and she went on about this woman who had a health issue, and nobody could figure out what was wrong with her. And she kind of went into detail, and finally she finished, said, what should I tell my friend to do? So I'm thinking, well, here we go. Here comes the woo-woo thing. And he took a while to answer her. And all of a sudden he looked at her, he said, I think she should go see a doctor. That's when I realized, okay, this guy's okay. I started to see he wasn't this weird guy. He was grounded, common sense. Well, after he spoke some more, he, took a break, and I'm standing there kind of in the back, halfway up, and everybody was gone. I'm just standing there kind of taking the whole thing in. And he was surrounded by people. After he finished speaking, people just surround him. And all of a sudden he walks through them, and he starts walking up. And I'm thinking, oh, he doesn't know there's no door up here. I'm thinking, oh, he doesn't know the only door is at the front. And I'm looking behind me, well, guess he was coming up to me. He walks right up to me, and he says to me, I want you to come to Dunsmuir. And then he turned around and left. And I'm like, what the heck does that mean? When we broke for lunch, again, he broke through this whole crowd of people and came up to me. He said, I want to make sure you come to Dunsmuir. And I'm like, okay. So of course I find Roger. I'm like, what the hell is Dunsmuir? And then Roger said, oh, no, he's bringing together the banking industry and the community folks that Roger is working with to talk about the principles up in Victoria Island. And I said, he said, oh, so he wants you to come. I said, well, that's what he said. He said, well, don't worry, then you're going. That's how I met Sydney Banks. He had heard about the work I was doing in the jails, totally flipped out about that because he had been wanting that for years. And when he heard that I was doing it, he got really, really excited. And so again, me feeling like he was some weird guy, and it turns out, of course, he's behind everything that I know and what I understand changed my life. So that was my introduction. So I was beyond skeptical. I was pissed.
I'll remember that for next time. And so I'm curious, when you talked about, like, before meeting him, you were already impacted by the understanding. What was it that had you turn on a dime? Like, what did you see that had you make that shift?
Yeah. You know what it was? It's kind of funny because, and you hear people say they see their life flash before them. Near-death experiences, people, their life just flashes before them. Well, that happened to me, but my life flashed before me in such a way where, as I heard the principles where it really hit me, all of a sudden I went, oh, that's why that happened. Oh, that explains this over here in my life. Oh, no wonder. It just explained everything. It explained when things went well and explained when I went off the rails. And that's what was the first impact. It just helped me realize, oh no, because I'd spent my whole life searching and trying to kind of get back to something. But again, right before I heard the principles, I had reached a point where I thought, you know what, this is as good as it's going to get. I'm doing okay. And I did. I stopped searching. I literally said, enough's enough. I did all the new age stuff. I'm getting my degree in psychology. And I finally hit the wall. I said, that's it, no more. And a couple of months later, this found me. I did not go to learn this willingly, again, kicking and screaming. So I am an example of a mandated, skeptical person. So that's what hit me. It gave an explanation to my life. And then, of course, I saw the potential, because I was not very hopeful about the work I was doing in the field of psychology, because it was focused on what was wrong with people, and it didn't look very hopeful, you know, very like people are going to struggle and be in therapy for years, and again, I'm working in all these different environments, and I'm a social worker by trade, so my big thing was helping people, you know, kind of give them things, you know, advocate. I was a big time advocate, civil rights, women's rights, you name it. And this changed the whole thing where, oh no, people have what they need already. It's not on me to make that happen. They know, they have their own wisdom, they have their own well-being. I just need to have a set of eyes on that now. And it just changed how I operated. That was the other thing.
I mean, that's so powerful.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember when we talked one time, you shared how, as you were, you know, sharing the understanding, sharing it with different people, co-teaching, that it became clear that it was more than just about thought recognition, that what you were sharing is more than just about that. So I'd love if you could kind of speak to that.
Yeah.
That would be really great.
Well, you know, I was on board with the principles, you know, and again, I was the slow learner. You know, everybody's having massive insights and I'm sitting there like, when is it my turn, you know? Because I did a year with Roger. He did a program with a group of us. But what really sealed it for me, because I saw profound things happen with inmates in the jail, it was when I was, Bob Garner, who brought this into Santa Clara County. He called me and he said, okay, you're going to be working with this organization. It was a mental health organization, and you're going to be working in a residential program for people diagnosed with severe schizophrenia and OCD, and maybe some bipolar. And I said, you know, Bob, I don't know that much about working with people severe schizophrenia. I mean, even though I had a master's degree in psychology, I said, I know nothing. And he said, no, you're going to do it anyway. So me and a colleague, plus we were paid, but I said, really, I didn't want to do it. But because I was so thankful to Bob, because of him, I had been exposed to the principles, I begrudgingly said, okay. You notice every time I start something, it's begrudgingly. So we went in to work with them. And so the first day, they bring in all the residents. And it was something like in a movie. They were delusional, they were weird, I mean, and my colleague and I looked at each other like, you've got to be kidding. And at that moment, I had two thoughts. I want my mommy, but she was dead, so no option there. And my other thought was, I want to go home right now, seriously. And my colleague, we looked at each other and I knew she was thinking the same thing, like, can we go now? But then because we knew each other pretty well, we kind of looked at each other and kind of just between the two of us, we thought, well, if this is really true, that all human beings operate the same way and they're all connected to this universal intelligence and all this stuff that I've been teaching, then it must be true for this group of folks. So she and I, all of a sudden, we just got super present. We started with relief, and we just got super present, and we looked out, okay, so what do we do with this group of folks? So it changed for us. And because we had that set of eyes, you know, we had to purposely do that. Like, okay, wait a minute, no, there's no difference here. They're manifesting bizarrely, but they're still operating as a human being. So, and again, I could write a book on that experience. I wish we had a film crew to show the difference from the beginning to the end. Now, they still, of course, all had schizophrenia, you know, diagnosed, brain issue. But it went in. And over time, their whole manifestation changed. It was less bizarre. Meds were reduced. I mean, I could just go on and on. But the bottom line is, that's where my certainty came from. That was because I thought there must be a couple of exceptions here for like a group like this. And that's where I realized, and I got my certainty that this is true for all human beings, regardless of brain damage, regardless of biochemistry, regardless of diagnoses, that all human beings operate the same way. So for me, there are no exceptions. So now I can navigate anywhere because I have that certainty. And that's a scientific, spiritual fact certainty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's so hopeful.
Very hopeful.
So
very hopeful. Yeah. Yeah. So I can stay light in the presence of whatever is in front of me. Yeah, I may have personal thoughts float in. I may, go into, oh my God, what am I, how am I going to deal with this? I may get thrown, but underneath the whole thing, what saves me, what keeps me grounded is this certainty.
Yeah. And to speak to how it is a description of how human beings work, but within that description, there's that hopefulness.
Yes.
Because it's pointing to the innate health and well-being that's there for every single one of us.
No exception. Yeah. No exceptions.
Yeah.
No exceptions. Yeah.
So I'm sure other people are also interested in hearing any any stories that you'd like to share about working in the prison system. I know I have some that come to mind for me, but I don't know if there's anything you feel sort of that's present for you to share about what that was like for you to work with inmates. And I know you worked for a long time in that system in California and did some profound work.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I shared this story last week, which I hadn't thought about for a number of years. So I thought this might be a fun one. Well, not fun, but interesting one. I ended up teaching the principals in what they called the high secure unit. It was a lockdown unit, which means the inmates only get out 1 hour a day. Or when they have pill call, when the nurse comes to give them medication. And apparently, even with that, there was still a number of fights. Things would start happening. In fact, the nickname for that unit was called Thunderdome, which was kind of a great nickname. And the commander of the jail called me and he said, "Listen, would you be interested in going into this unit?" And I'm looking at him like, "Yeah, when do I start?" And he said, "Well, I'm just giving you the heads up. It's a tough unit. My COs are not happy about you going in there, but for some reason, I feel it might be a good move to have you in there." And I said, "No problem." So I was, again, working in that particular unit. And again, many stories from that experience. But there was one gentleman, and most of them are guys who've been in the gangs. The Norteño gang, which is huge in California. And these are career guys. I mean, they were either born into the gang or they came in at a very young age. And there's one gentleman, and I can visualize him now. When I'd be teaching the class, he'd be like really listening to me. You could just feel him. Didn't say a whole lot, but I could just feel him listening. And one day he came up to me after the class. He said, "Cathy, could you write a letter to the judge for me and ask if I can stay for the last 3 classes?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "Well, I'm going to be sentenced like tomorrow. And as soon as they're sentenced, they're in the main jail here in San Jose. As soon as they're sentenced, they're moved to a prison." Now, usually the guys in this unit, they can't wait to get sentenced because in this unit, they don't get to go out at all. It's a high-rise jail. So as soon as they go to a prison, they get to go out in the yard and maybe see buddies and all of that. So it was unusual for an inmate wanting to stay longer in that unit. So he did. He asked the judge, and he gave the letter, and the judge looked at the letter, looked at him, and this judge has watched this inmate because during the trial process, it's a long thing. It's a long time. He was found guilty, and usually for the crime he did, he was up for 25 to life without parole. So, but he just wanted to stay for the last 3 weeks of the class. So the judge looked at him. He said, "I don't have time now, but I want to know what's happened to you. I want to know what you've learned that you want to, So he rescheduled the sentencing hearing. So this gentleman finished my class. And when it was time to go before the judge then said, "Okay, now what is it that you've learned? Because I've noticed a change in you." And of course, he shared what he learned about the principles in his own words. And the judge looked at him, and the judge said, okay, here's the deal. Instead of 25 to life, I'm going to give you 20 to life with, you can be eligible for parole in 10 years. Now that's a huge difference, huge difference. When he came back and shared that with the rest of the guys in the class, they could not believe it. And I said, well, is that unusual? And they said, oh, you don't understand, Cathy. Unheard of for a judge to do that, especially with gang enhancements. And because the judge saw the change in him, it wasn't that he just got a letter from me and he's trying to make his case look good. But that wasn't the end of the story. So he was sent off to prison. And I gave him a lot of SIDS, you know, any paperback books, you know, I gave him a lot of stuff to take with him. So a few weeks later, I do a class outside the jail. It was set up for the inmates when they got out, but it became more of a community class Thursday night. And this gentleman came up with an elderly, well, not that old, an older Hispanic woman. And the gentleman said, this woman would like to say something to you, but she doesn't speak English. And I said, well, okay. So she said something, and then the gentleman translated. And basically what she said to me is, thank you for giving me my son back. This is the son that I have known, and I thought I lost him forever. Thank you so much. And she's crying, and then I start crying. I mean, it was so powerful because he reconnected to who he really was, and his mom saw that. And so now, even though he's doing time in prison, of course she will go see him. They have a relationship now. They've reconnected, and that was such a gift for both of them. So that wasn't like, it was just unexpected. Those are the kinds of things that happen. All of them are unexpected, you know, and you walk away, and I call those miracles, because this guy was a career gangbanger, and they pride themselves. All right, I'm going to prison. So they live this prison life, which to them is no different than you and I going off to college. You know, it's kind of like I mean, they don't love not having their freedom, but once they're in a prison, it's like they have this whole other world that they operate in. So this was a big deal. I will never forget that.
Yeah, it was a powerful transformation.
Yeah. But when the mom, see, it's the mom, because I'm a mom, and I'm like, I can't even imagine losing my son to a gang and watching my son live that life. And I just can't even imagine that. So for her to, and I think she was from, you know, way south, not from, you know, somebody had to drive her up.
Right.
But she really wanted to thank me. And I looked at her and I said, well, no, well, he had it all along. Your son was there. He just came home. And she heard that.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
Yeah. So anyway.
Well, thank you. Well, I see we've got our first hand raised.
Yay!
So I encourage everyone who would like to ask Cathy a question. It's a wonderful opportunity to just, you know, go ahead and press the participants button and the raise hand button. But we'll start with Valerie. Let me unmute you, Valerie. Hi, Valerie.
Where is she?
Cool, I'm unmuted. Hello.
Oh, there she is. Hi.
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 Really enjoyed listening to you, Cathy. In the past year, I've started teaching. Now, I'm not a practitioner or psychologist or anything, but I'm a fan of the principles, and I found it very helpful. But I teach horticulture.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah, it's great. And what we call in the community, in Ireland, in the community means to people, let's say, from disadvantaged backgrounds. So, and then I found in my first main group that I'm teaching for a year, half of them have been in prison. Now, I didn't know that beforehand. And I realized that, yeah, mostly their option is prison or staying out of prison. And for the same reasons that you just said, you know, they say, well, I got Sky Sports, I have somewhere to sleep, I have my friends, you know, I have everything. And I've often thought, you know, I'd like to bring in the principles, but I don't know how, or yeah, I don't, you know, when you're kind of there in a moment and you know that you could, but you don't, because you don't know how. I know this is a classic question in the community.
Well, but yeah. Go ahead.
Well, no better woman to ask than yourself with an Irish name.
There,
Casey.
hey, my grandfather's from Ireland. Cork, County Cork. Anyway, I didn't know either. See, people don't realize, you know, they hear all the work I've done. When I started, I didn't know shit. Now I'm going to be real honest about that. I just, and it's funny because you're in a good place right now. You're actually, I was in the jail doing something else. I was doing a research program, data collection on drug usage. So I was in the system already doing something else. So you're doing this community horticulture thing. So you're in the system already, quote. Okay. So now all I did was it sort of, as I heard women on the phone freaking out about their kids on the home front, being emotional and upset, it occurred to me, wow, this may be helpful for them. So it occurred to me in the moment. And it took me a while. I mean, I'm in the principals world. I didn't see it right away. Well, all of a sudden it hit me, and I called a friend. I said, you know, we should take this into the jails. And she goes, yeah, that's a great idea. So we wrote up a proposal and got funded. I mean, that was because at the time they were putting out requests for proposals for programs in just in general in the county system. So we wrote up the proposal and we got funded. And then we looked at each other and we're like, now what do we do? Because we had never taught the principals, you know, anywhere. I mean, I'd been using it with my clients one-on-one. So what I'm trying to point you to is just see the potential, just look at the possibility and trust, you know, that something will occur to you as you're working with these folks. Something might occur to you as to the context that you could introduce this. And I can't think of a better environment than as people are learning about horticulture, because they do that here in the States. And what happens is people slip into their well-being when they're near nature. That's, you know, or with animals, or see, that's the point of doing these kinds of programs, is people slip into their well-being. But that would be an opportunity for you to talk about, maybe, you know, asking, well, how does it feel for you to be doing this work? And you know, how is this working for you? And have them talk about that. And then maybe backdoor it into, well, are there other times when you have the same feeling you have when you're working around horticulture? Well, again, see, it's kind of like looking at where you are and trusting your wisdom to come up with an idea to bring that in to the conversation. Even though you're not maybe doing a structured class, you may want to, you know, check in with them. Hey, I just want to see how you're doing with this, and what are you getting out of, you know, being here? Do you like being here? Do you not like being here? You know, that kind of conversation.
Well, apparently they like me because I don't ask them any of those things.
Well, then ask them, well, why do you think they don't want you to ask those things?
Oh, because they have another class with somebody at sort of social work stuff, and they all give out stink about it. But I'm sure it's completely different.
Now, do they talk to you about it?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have a rapport with them.
Okay.
Yeah, you have a rapport. So if they're complaining about the other class, which I used to hear a lot about.
They're probably complaining about my class to her.
I doubt it. Not if they're telling you stuff like that. They don't tell everybody that stuff. So they're letting their hair down with you. So as say they start complaining about it, get curious about it. Well, what is it? Tell me more about that. Tell me. See, the whole point is to help them just get a little reflective about whatever they're doing, whether they're complaining about another class or they're, you know, enjoying the horticulture. But it doesn't have to be a formal thing. Really, now what? Now, why is that? Because I used to hear that from other, you know, because I was in the context of programs where I was one of the classes. So when people would come to me, I had correctional officers come to me complaining about another class. It was the sexual trauma class. And the correctional officer came up to me and he said, can you do something about getting rid of this class? And I said, no, sir, I'm just one of the classes. That's not up to me. But I coached him on, well, why is it you want to get rid of the class? Cathy, after the psychologists leave this class, the women have a meltdown.
Oh, yeah.
We had one woman attempt suicide. I mean, all hell breaks loose. I said, well, then you need to share that. Just share your observations to whoever's in charge of you and the program director and let them know this is what's going on. He said, yeah, when you guys finish with them, it's the opposite. That he said, you know, they're calm. We don't have to worry about it. He said, but this other client, well, see, now I just got curious. Well, why do you, you know, and I just there to listen.
Yeah, yeah.
And then whatever occurred to me to say about that, you know, because I knew why they were melting down. You know, they were taking them into their past, which they weren't ready for. But with good intention, the psychologist thought this was important. See, to me, if somebody has an insight about their past, that's fabulous. But to go in when they're not ready for it is not a good idea. Okay.
And to be made do it is a bad idea.
Yeah. So you have this connection already. So just get all this thinking out of the way about, well, you know, how do I do this or should I do this? Just be in the moment with them and then put that on the back burner about, well, it would be nice to do this and maybe something will occur to me. Because that's how I started. That's how I started.
Yeah.
There was no formula. There's no instruction book. There's the only place anything happened in my career came from having an insight or an idea coming from my wisdom and trusting that I had the wherewithal to see where to go next.
Yeah, I do feel that, I do. And we do have lovely times when the energy really kind of builds up and you just know everyone is really, really happy.
Yeah. So, you know, take it, just go for it. The worst they can do is look at you and give you the look. And you can say, okay, all right, okay, I'll back
let's
off.
go take
Yeah. But you could, you know, again, because you have that connection already, you know, that's 98% of it.
Cool.
98%.
Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you, Cathy.
Yeah, or just your presence with them. You may not teach them anything, but you just being with them with that set of eyes on them, that right there could be enough.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so
much. Thanks, Rohini. Thanks, Catherine.
All right, we'll go next to Michael.
Michael, where is Michael?
Hi, Michael.
I'm here.
There you are. Hi.
I have a whole bunch of people in front of me. He's not showing up. So
he'll show if you.
When he starts talking, maybe.
Yeah, when he starts, you'll see him.
Okay.
Go ahead, Michael.
Good to see you again.
There he is.
Cathy.
There he is. Hi, there. I see you, Michael. Yes, good to see you.
I thought I would share something that within the last couple of weeks I've had as an experience that's deepened my understanding of the principles. And I had flew back to the Midwest, to Minnesota, to be with a family event. And on my way back home, I had a layover in Denver before I got to Bakersfield. And so the first thing happened, I got lost and I panicked. I mean, I was just panicking. And, you know, I was thinking of Tom Hanks' movie, The Airport, that I was going to be there forever.
Yes.
I will never leave this place. But there was something inside of me. It wasn't so much vocal because my mind was just spinning, but it was like it was just guiding me.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'll go down this, you know, but I'm still going to be lost. I'll be here forever.
Yeah.
Well, I finally found where the gate was and where the plane was to go to Bakersfield. And I was just so thankful. I was so hot. I had a bottle of water in my carry-on, and all I could think of, oh, good, because I'm going to have smooth sailing all the way home. I'm done with this. And so they started calling for people to get onto the plane. And I was in a group, and I looking around the people, and I see this one individual with this ball cap and a beard and long, straggly hair. And I said, oh, God, I hope I don't have to sit by him. Guess what?
Of course.
And it was dark in there because it was hot, so they had closed all the shades on the window. And I said, okay, I've had this experience already of being lost. Going to go back to mind, thought, consciousness. Just let that take over and just kind of ignore this other individual. He can do whatever he wants to do. So we got flying, and all of a sudden the captain came aboard and he said, you notice I still have fasten your seatbelt sign on, is that we're going to experience a lot of turbulence on this deal. I went, oh no. But I could just feel this calm that came over because I wasn't thinking about it. But the guy next to me had put down his tray and he kept slapping his hand on the tray, opening the shade, and it was like he was looking out. And it was like, I wanted to say, we're still up here. But it was like he was just checking. But then I thought, no, just stay calm. And then it kind of dawned on me, he was doing this innocently. I mean, sometimes he got so upset, he threw his cap on the tray and, oh, you know, all of this kind of stuff. And I thought, this is going to be one of those guys who's going to flip out on a plane, you know? And, but I just said, you know, he is doing that innocently because it's just his thoughts. And he was just having troublesome thoughts because of the turbulence. So it went for most of the flight, and that turbulence, I mean, and I got, as I was just in that calm, I had an insight. And the insight was what I just had experienced with all my thinking in the terminal was just turbulence.
Oh, that's good.
You know, it was just turbulence in my mind that I had created. And it was really affecting my well-being. But here, from inside, I'm calm. I'm peaceful. I'm not even concerned about that. And then I just asked, why is that? Well, I have my faith in the pilot. The pilot knows how to guide this plane. He's probably had a lot of experience going through turbulence. So I don't need to get upset about it because he knows what he's doing. This other man, he can have that choice of just flipping out. And we landed. And it's interesting to watch and to experience those pilots that are really had a lot of experience, because usually on those small jets, when they land, it's like a thud, you know? And we just had a smooth landing also. And when I got to the terminal and found my wife, she had been tracing the flight on her phone. And she said, did you have some turbulence up there? I said, did we? She said, I was following the whole flight plan, but there was a point that he left the flight plan and he went around and he got back on the flight plan. And I just at that moment just thought, I am so thankful that I have a spiritual, divine pilot inside that guides the key principles. And turbulent times, the biggest thing I got out of that, they're just a temporary phenomenon.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And when I went back to my office and working with the different individuals, I said, man, it sounds like you experienced a lot of turbulence this week. And they could relate to that, because you can tell, well, you're experiencing a lot of negative thinking, and it doesn't have the same kind of connection. So I was just really thankful, not only to get connected with my family again, in a sense, really getting connected with myself and
your client.
The principles, no matter how long you experience them, use them, whatever, they're always new. There's always something new that comes up. And you just know what to do.
Absolutely.
It guides you there. So I was really thankful for that and thought I would like to share it with you.
That's fabulous. That's a fabulous experience. And And, you know, when people work with me, that they want to learn how to teach, and Roger used to say this to me all the time. Roger Mills, teach from what you know, meaning teach from your own understanding. And when you shared that with your client, oh, it looks like you've had a lot of turbulence this week. That came from that. It didn't come from your head. It didn't come from a great idea of how to share the principles. It came from your own experience. And that, so there are 2 points that you presented to me. First, you know, when we're teaching, you know, that's what we teach from, our own understanding. But the other piece was, even when we're in turbulence, the calm is still there, help guiding us, getting us through what we need to get through. So we may be all freaking out, but underneath it all, and I've had that experience, so I'm totally freaking out, but I know underneath that I'm okay. Whereas before, I'd be freaking out, not knowing I'm okay, which can be terrifying, and you think it's never going to end. But if you have an understanding, oh, I'm just going through turbulence right now, and I'm in it. It's happening. But thank God, underneath all of it, there's something that's going to get me through whatever I need to go through. And that's very hopeful. That changes how I am in life. And I'm hearing that from you, that we can get totally lost in the airport. And believe me, I've been lost in airports where they shut down the trains went on strike, 12 o'clock at night, midnight in Brussels. We'll never forget this. Big strike. I don't speak the language, and I'm stranded, and nobody speaks English. So I had that moment of panic, but then I thought, okay, here we go. I'm in the unknown. And again, just that intuitive part of me took over and helped me figure out how to get to where I need to go. So that's a great story.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael. Appreciate you sharing that. All right, next we're going to go to Monique. Let me unmute you. Hi, Monique.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
See you beautifully, yes.
Cathy, I'm really excited to talk to you because anytime I see anybody who's practicing or sharing the principles and who is a licensed psychotherapist, I jump on it because I am.
Okay, I'm not licensed. I did all the 3,000 hours and all that, but I actually walked away from that world. So
well, that's probably going to answer some of my questions. I'm halfway through that program.
Okay.
And yeah, so I kind of came across the 3 principles when I was about a year into my graduate program. I'm 3 years in, 2 years into it now. I have 2 years to go.
Okay.
I'm going to have to do a practicum under supervision. I'm going to have to do the whole 3,000 hours.
I've done it all.
The MFT and LPCC track. And so anyway, I'm scared about it because this completely changed how I think about the mind. And it's going against a lot of what I'm being taught. And I'm in a holistic program. There's lots of Jungian stuff, a lot of archetype, a lot of dream work, shadow work, all this stuff. And in fact, the therapy that I've had most of my life, like really since I was a child, was with a Jungian analyst. And it's funny because I still see him every now and then, and he's like, oh, you're doing so well, and all this stuff, right? And we've talked about it, and he kind of sees it as, he has this kind of spiritual aspect to him, and he sees it as, oh, you found the spiritual piece at the end of all the 30 years of hard work that we've done, right? And okay. Maybe, and I get very confused about it because like we had this conversation and he was talking about the shadow and how, there's this different perspective where I'm like, okay, I kind of see, all these negative thoughts as just the mind doing what it does, and I don't need to pay much attention to it. And his theory is, well, that's a really missed opportunity because there's some transformation that can happen when you face your shadow, when you kind of, it's not just saying, oh, that thought isn't true, but actually staring it in the face and thinking, what if it is true? And am I still okay with that? Am I still worthy of love? And he feels like that's a big transformational piece that's missed when you just dismiss your thoughts as thoughts, right? And so like that started getting me thinking. I was like, oh, maybe there is something to this, like staring down the demons, you know, and your shadow and the hero's journey and, you know, all that. You know, and so, and I'm really steeped in all this, like, oh, you know, therapy is hard work. You know,
well, let me ask you then, what is your question then? What are you wanting to
I was hoping to get some insight about how to be in the psychotherapy world with this understanding. Well, there's some hoops I'm just gonna have to jump through. I understand that. Like
okay, so you got that. Okay.
So like how I'm almost wondering too, like what kind of language I can, like my professors are very confused by me, and they're kind of putting me in the transpersonal world, and then they're putting me in the mindfulness world, and they're trying to put me in like what's already established. I don't want to say anything about the three principles because I'm pretty sure that they would just.
Okay, I think what I'm hearing is you're the one creating the confusion, not being in the program with all the other approaches.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah. You see, you're trying to, how do I want to say this? You're trying to kind of merge them.
Yes.
Okay, that's what's getting you in trouble. Okay, so this is what I did. You know, I was in the last year. Okay, and this is what I did. As soon as I heard the principles, I knew, okay, all this other stuff. And believe me, I look back, I loved my teachers and I appreciate my teachers. Yeah. At the time I thought, oh, they're in the old technology and I'm in the new technology. Well, that's arrogant. Yeah. See, I had to realize I was being arrogant about, well, they're wrong and I'm right. So, but I did know that the way I worked with people is where I use my understanding. Okay. I could sit in a class and, you know, study Jung and all that easily. And I found it fascinating. I mean, some of my classes I loved, they were fascinating. I was focused, I was going to go into cognitive approach. That's where I was headed. And then when I learned the principles, I thought, oh, they're just, you know, working with the content of thought. And I'm working with the function of thought. Okay, cool. But I could still talk about the content of thought to get through the courses. So you have to decide, do you really want to get a license as an MFT? See, that's what you need to decide. When I finished my 3,000 hours, and the reason why I did that is because it gave me more opportunities to work with people and to learn more about using the principles in my individual work with folks. But my supervisor, when I would come in to share, you know, case presentation, and I would present the diagnosis and the whole, you know, the DSM-4, you know, all that stuff. And then I would give a progress report. At one point he looked at me and said, no, this can't be true. Because see, the clients were getting well too fast. And he questioned that with me. So you know what he did? He literally went and interviewed all of my clients. He watched me through a two-way thing to watch me do the work. And at the end of his whole doing of that, he pulled me into his office. He said, I want to know what you know. Now, I was lucky. I was lucky because if he told me, well, Cathy, you can't work with people that way anymore, I was willing to walk. I was willing to walk away. Now, I could still sit in the classes. I didn't engage with trying to get to merge the different things. It was like, okay, I'm just learning about the field of psychology right now. And appreciating the wisdom in it, appreciating, yes, people can have an insight whether they know the principles or not. Any person. See, the principles is just kind of a blueprint to help people see more directly how the whole thing works. But it's not necessary for people to have insights to know that. And I think in the principles world, we get a little arrogant about that. So for you, I think first make a decision. Now, do I really want to pursue a license? Because having a license does give you entree. It definitely gives you entree. Now, I walked away because I didn't want to be a part of that world, but I also was looking in a different direction because of the work I was doing, and I didn't need a license.
Mhm.
It wasn't
I
required.
want to change that world. Yeah. That was my decision.
Well, okay. Well, guess what? Guess what? If that's what you want to do, I would wait till later. But while you're in it, because you're just an intern and you're just a student, no. And they're going to look at you through their lens innocently.
Yeah.
So there's no getting away from that.
Yeah.
So you're the one who's making this complicated, not them. So maybe you need to kind of let that percolate a little bit and reflect on, okay, what is it that I really want to do? What am I willing to do? And see, I always have that line in the sand. And for me, if my supervisor would have said to me, Cathy, no, you can't work with people this way. I will not allow it, whatever. But because they saw the results of my clients, and not my other supervisor, she was so impressed. She didn't even ask what I was doing. It's like she didn't care. And she wanted me. Yeah. So I got lucky with 2 good supervisors.
Yeah.
Very, very lucky. But I really was ready to walk if they gave me a hard time.
Yeah, and that's the part that I'm actually very worried about, is that I may have a supervisor who's like, oh, just as long as you're getting
Yeah.
or I might get one who's,
So right now you can't get all that stuff floating in your head. See, that's what's getting in your way, is you're making a lot of meaning about being in the different worlds. I'm in a lot of different worlds. When I was in the jail system, they had 5 other approaches, and we were in the middle of it. Like the sexual trauma, I knew it was not helping the clients. But it's funny how things work out. It's funny. And people are drawn to you without you having to say anything. I just had my grounding, my presence, the set of eyes that we're all in this together, regardless of how we're working with people. Mm-hmm. People want the best to help people. See, I had to see that because I was in that arrogance. While the principles are the new technology, we're the nano chip, and the others are like the 8 rooms of the IBM computers. I used to say that, which is wrong. I mean, that is just wrong. So now everybody's doing God's work here. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate any person who's out there helping others, as long as they're not damaging them, purposely damaging them.
And I think part of it is just my own, I have been steeped in the traditional psychology.
Well, yeah, of course you have. Yeah. So for you, you need to go in instead of going out.
Yeah.
Just get quiet and just reconnect.
Is like, is it enough? Is the principles enough?
Well, I can say with certainty, given all the work I've done, absolutely. I've never doubted it. And I wish I could document every case and there are tapes out there, but not with me, but all my colleagues, we just see the powerfulness in this.
And because I've been through all the psychotherapy first, and a lot of people who came to the 3 principles had a lot of psychotherapy.
Same here. Me too.
Okay, it's just
me too.
You have to do all that stuff first.
No, not required.
Good.
But again, you don't want, see, I'm glad I have clinical training, because there are times when I do go into my clinical eyes, if I'm working with somebody who I think is suicidal or clinically depressed, I'm grateful for that knowledge, because that can help me assess maybe they need to be referred to a psychiatrist. So I don't throw all that out the window. No, and we do have a psychiatrist, Bill Pettit. So people have biochemistry, people have been addicted to drugs, so I'm probably, and I used to, kind of be the renegade on this stuff. Like, hey, I'm working with people who've been doing meth for 20 years. Mm-hmm. They need to be on medication. So I'm very clear about that. But once they have an understanding and they're on medication, wow, that makes a huge difference in their lives. But if they're not on medication and their minds can't sit still for a nanosecond, then I could be teaching the most profound way on the planet and it's not going to go in. So I'm one of the few people, I think, that feels very strongly about there is a clinical aspect in terms of, as human beings, we have a physical, biochemical, organic, physical being.
Sure. Yeah.
But that's, so I'm glad I have that knowledge, but I don't operate from it unless needed, like in the moment.
Yeah. And how to share is another thing, because I mean, I won't keep you.
Yeah. But this is about you though. This is about you. Okay. Yeah. So you need to kind of come to terms with, okay, what is it that I really want? And then once you get clear about that, then you'll be able to navigate through all that stuff. But you have to see you're making all this meaning in your own mind, and that's what's tripping you up.
Oh, I'm yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Monique. Thanks. So Cathy, I want to do a time check with you. We have 3 more hands raised and we're a couple minutes before the hour. Do you have time for 3 questions, or do you want
Plenty of time? I have nothing going on today.
Okay, so the last 3 people who have their hands raised will be the last questions that we take.
Yeah, usually I have to rush off to babysitting. I'm a grandma.
Yeah, I know. I have to check about the important things.
I know. Today I'm off duty as a grandma.
Okay. All right, then. So the next person we'll go to is Laurel. Hi, Laurel.
Hello. Thank you very much.
Oh, hi. Hi, Laurel.
Hi, Cathy.
Let me tip your screen so I can see your whole, there you go. There you go.
Well, wonderful to hear you. Thank you so much. I'm also a grandmother. I raised my son as a single mother, and he is trying to make up for not having had a father to his children.
Okay.
And so his wife has been the primary breadwinner, and they have not had enough. He has done his best to bring in income, but hasn't succeeded to any great degree. So he's the primary parent, primary caretaker, doing the very best he can, being generous and kind-hearted, but also the children are not easy. I mean, very bright, very full of energy. I don't know that he has exerted enough authority to get the cooperation or enough reciprocity with all the givingness, so that he's often angry with them and frustrated, and it's just painful to watch.
Yeah.
And they do not have the money to get support. They both are pretty exhausted. Yeah. I don't know how to help them.
Yeah, okay. Wow, talk about where my world right now. Here's the thing, and I think this is about all parents. And this is the toughest area, I think, for anybody to appreciate that our children, regardless of how they're doing, have their own wisdom. And let's face it, we have a lot on our kids. We have a lot on wanting our children, our kids, to be happy, to be okay, to know what to do. I mean, imagine the tallest building in the entire world. That's how much thinking we have with good intention on the well-being of our kids. That's the first thing you need to see. You have a lot on this. That's the first piece. And that's a tough one, because I used to think, well, I have to have all of that to be a good parent. I need to be hypervigilant and kind of focused on them and again, make meaning about what they're doing and all of that. Because somehow I thought if I did enough of that, enough worrying, enough, concern, I thought, well, that is what's going to help the situation. And I found out the hard way, easy way, that's actually getting in the way of me doing anything. So the first piece is you need to see you. And I know as grandma, when I watch my son, the issue with my son is he's great with his wife and the kids. He hates his job. So he walks around in a cloud about his job. and it's so clear to me. And he laments to me all on and on how he hates his job. And well, he loves his job, but the people and this and that. And I just want to get in there. And sometimes I even say to him, Aaron, life's too short. Do you want to expend all that mental angst to that? You have your children, you have your wife. They're the most important thing. Why would you do that? I mean, well, one time I did say that, and I don't even think he heard it. So when I'm with my son, however he's doing, the most important thing is my presence. That's it. And sometimes when you bring your presence to the table, it's like the young woman who was working with folks in Ireland, when I said, you know, you don't have to maybe teach them anything, but they feel your connection. They feel your, what I would call unconditional love. And when you just start with that, that's the most important thing. And yeah, your mind's going to go into, oh God, he's getting impatient, or this is not good. Well, that's your humanity, that's your humanness, okay? And that's something you need to see for yourself. But when you come out from under all of that, you never know what might occur to you that might be a good intervention. But you can't even think about that even. You just need to, and already you've said they're doing the best they can. You see that, you see they're exhausted. Okay, you see that. But you need to get clear first and not carry that. And somehow they're going to get through it, because parents and kids end up, the kids grow up, everybody kind of gets it together, usually. Trusting in that part of yourself and in them. And that's all I'm going to say to you.
Okay.
Because you intuitively, like I said, we want to get in there. But they're separate human beings, and they operate the same way. They have their own God-given wisdom. I need to get that set of eyes on my son before he got married. And he felt the difference. All of a sudden our relationship changed. Instead of me poking at him like, why didn't you do this? Or what, you know, you're so smart, but you're doing that. See, when I stopped doing that and when I saw his wisdom first, it changed the whole game. So I hope that helps.
It does. And I do my best to be there as often as I can.
Hang in there.
Thank you, Laurel. Thanks so much, Laurel.
We should have a grandma's group.
That's a great idea.
I'm telling you, I bet you a lot of grandmas would sign up for that one. Are you worried about your children and the grandkids? Okay.
All right. The next person is Louise. Let me unmute you.
Louise.
Hi, Louise.
Hi. Hi.
Hey, hi there.
Thank you. Thanks for having my question. So I'm quite new to the principles. So my question kind of reflects that. Really, it's about when I first bumped into the principles, my life shifted quite significantly, quite quickly. And the first sort of conversations I were involved in was a program around anxiety. It was a Little Piece of Mind, Nicola Bird's program, which you've probably heard of.
Say that again. I missed that.
So the first program that I was involved in that was sharing this understanding is A Little Piece of Mind. It was Nicola Bird's program.
I don't know who Nicola is, but that's fine.
Okay. So anyway, so that's
okay, great.
Yeah, that was my first kind of introduction. Things started to change and shift, and I was pushing outside of my comfort zone. My background as my context being anxiety and traveling around to new places and unfamiliar places and that sort of thing being quite difficult. Then I kind of fell out of it for a while, had a period of unhealthy health. Mm-hmm. And then I had one instance where I had this one-to-one mentoring session, and I tapped into this incredible feeling of like joy and aliveness and vitality and just absolute presence, real presence. So my thing I'm asking for any words of wisdom on is, I feel like I'm trying to get back to that place. I feel like I'm seeking. I'm listening to Sid's audios. I'm reading every book I can read. I'm like, I'm seeking, because I know that there's more to be heard. And I do have a goal. My goal is to be able to travel freely anywhere on my own, people confidently, joyfully. And I know that will eventually happen.
Okay.
I know that's not necessarily the right way, but how do you overcome this seeking?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? First of all, the word overcome. for anything, you know, overcome eating, overcome shopping, overcome being too attached to my grandkids, I mean, see, as you start to really see the nature of how the principles, you know, work through us, what you start to realize is it takes a lot of thought to manage thought. So as soon as you try in any kind of thinking about anything, and as soon as you add another layer of trying to change that, what do you see happens when you put thought on top of thought? It makes it bigger, doesn't it?
Yes.
But if you just let it be, okay, well, I'm into the seeking thing. I don't know why, but I just have this thing about seeking. Mm-hmm. And, oh, well, that's just kind of where I'm at. Now, if you just allowed yourself to have that, mm-hmm. what do you think might happen?
Probably calm everything.
Yeah. It's because we all go through times when we're kind of caught up in something. You know, I can get caught up in silly stuff. You have no idea how crazy I can get over something that somebody would look at me and go, really, Cathy? But yet I'm in it. Mm-hmm. And then I could have this thinking, oh, I can't believe I'm doing this. I teach the principles. People look up to me. And here I am flipping out about somebody hanging their clothes on the balcony. And that's such a big deal for me. What is wrong? No, all I say to myself is, well, that's kind of funny, Cathy, that you're getting all ramped up about somebody hanging their clothes on the balcony. Isn't that interesting? Now, I'm still annoyed, but I don't add more to it. I don't make meaning about the fact that I'm doing it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is amusing because, you know, you know, all this bad stuff's going on in the world and I'm going to fixate on that. But again, it's accepting our humanity. You know, I'm seeking. Now, you may one day say, well, what's the deal about that? What is this thing? Why am I doing this? Well, obviously, you're going for the good feeling. Yeah, I want to get it back. Mm-hmm. Well, see, when you were with that mentor, you didn't get that feeling from the mentor. You slipped into the good feeling and then you assigned it to the mentor, or we assign it to the situation, or we assign it to the whatever it is. You know, I could eat a fabulous meal at a restaurant and think, oh, wow, and just go into this wonderful, oh, this is fabulous. And think, well, I'm getting the feeling from the food. Well, yeah, I'm getting an experience from the food. But other times I could be eating the same food. And have you ever done that where you go back to a restaurant, I'm going to order that thing again because it was so good. And also I'm eating, I'm like, oh, well, somehow it's different. Mm-hmm. Well, the food could be the same food, but my experience of it is still coming through me. So any feeling you get, good feelings, bad feelings, they just come from you. It's not the great mentor. Now, the mentor pointed you in that direction and you just slipped into it. Mm-hmm. And then you think, oh, I want more of that. Well, the more is in there right now. Mm-hmm. It's right. And that's when I first heard this, and that's what hit me. You mean I've had this all along, but I've spent 45 years trying to get it, find it, get it back, do all these crazy things to get that good feeling. I've been addicted to cocaine to get that good feeling. I've done everything to get to that good feeling. And when somebody said, well, guess what? I said, you mean the joke's on me? It's been in there the whole time. And I've been looking out here. I mean, I laughed when I heard that because it was like a dog chasing its tail.
Yeah.
So you're just innocently wanting, we all want that good feeling. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to feel anxiety. But if we start to appreciate, well, the gentleman who talked about the turbulence, you know, sometimes we're in turbulence and sometimes we're not.
Yeah.
Oh, well. And feelings in and of themselves cannot harm you at all because they're just a different form of thought. That's all they are. So, oh, well, just you're in the seeking phase, you know, and don't feel like you've got to do something with that or it's bad, you know, or, you know, because you'll hear in the principles world, well, you don't need to look anymore because it's in you already. Well, that sounds great on paper, But until I connected to it, I didn't understand it. So I just let it be okay. Or maybe I think I just gave up. I think I just gave up. Like, well, I guess I'm not going to see what everybody else is seeing, you know, and I just sort of accepted that. And after that, that's when I started having the insights. And so I kind of had to bottom out on it. You know what I mean? I just finally had so much thinking and so much meaning about it. I finally just said, okay, I guess I'll just have to wait in line. and that's, as soon as that happened, and it just happened spontaneously for me, where I just sort of gave up on the whole thing. And after that, soon after that, that's when things started to occur to me. And that's when I started to realize, oh, I see what they're pointing me to. Okay. And then I went back to, well, I want to know more of that. And then I had to let go and wait. And that's all you can do. So that's my answer. Just let it be.
Let it be.
Let it be. Isn't there a song? Let it be.
Thank you, Louise. Thanks so much.
But I'm glad she asked that. That's a common question I get all the time. So
yeah,
we can all hear this over and over again, including me.
Great. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
All right, we have one final question for you,
Yeah.
Cathy, and it's Thomas. Hi, Thomas.
Hi, Thomas. Hi.
Hi. I've really enjoyed the talk.
Good.
I found it to be really interesting because I didn't realize that you were working in prisons, and I kind of feel like I'm in a prison, I guess in my own head, but also but in a way also circumstantially. I've lived in a town that, well, I don't really like where I live. I don't like it here, and I don't have any money. And I'm not really able to do very much. So I can kind of relate to that feeling of being in a prison, because I kind of feel like that. So, and I don't know, I just think that because I've been sitting in my own rubbish for such a long time, I don't know if I'm blocking insights because my head is so full. You know, I feel a bit nervous at the moment, actually. I don't know. I just my head just is so full a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And to the point of feeling like suicidal, I guess. I mean, but in the back of my mind, there is this knowing that at some point I'm going to come out of it. But I don't know when that's going to be. And I think the fact that I don't know when that's going to be, I despair about that. You know.
Okay. Well, you've said a few very profound things. I don't know if you realize that.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious. No, you've said a couple of very profound things. The first thing you said is, I'm a prisoner within my own mind. And most of us are.
Yeah.
But I don't see it as a good or bad thing. You know what I mean? It's neither good or bad. It just is.
Okay.
Okay. And you're starting to appreciate that your mind is always full. You're you know, for me, that's a big deal, to just appreciate, man, I've got so much stuff in my head. And just not making any meaning about that. Don't make it a bad thing. Just kind of see it for what it is.
Yeah.
And it, you know what? Join the club. Seriously, you are not alone in doing this. We all do this. I can spend a whole day doing what you're talking about, and at the end of the day, not even realize that the day happened. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, where did the day go? And it wasn't because I was having a great time. It's because my mind was just zooming, and all of a sudden the day's gone, and I feel like I missed out on something.
Yeah.
So I really want you to have compassion for yourself. Is that possible, do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. What does that mean? Yeah.
I mean, I hear those words, and
I know.
It makes sense,
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. But somehow you don't believe it or trust it.
Yeah, I think maybe a lot of what constitutes my suffering is being hard on myself, actually.
Yeah.
I don't
and
know.
Again, Well, again, join the club. I could be in a group of 40 people, very successful people. I've been in a group of 40 successful people in the business world, and I'll ask them, if you were to look at who is the hardest on you in your life, and guess what they all say?
Mm-hmm. Themselves.
They all say it.
Yeah.
So I want you to see that you're not alone in what I would call the human experience.
Mm.
And I'm so glad that you're connected to Rohini's program, and that you're watching these, you know, speakers, because all you just listen to and just hear other people speak. And after a while, you start to see we're kind of all in the same mishigas, the same craziness. Mishigas, craziness.
Yeah.
My favorite word. We're all in this together, you know?
Yeah. I think that the suffering states can be so intense.
Yes.
That
Yes.
I've almost, because I've dealt with them, I mean, sometimes I think that anyone else would have like been admitted to a psych ward by now.
Yeah.
Because I think I mean, we're all strong, but I think that personality-wise, I'm very strong, so I've just dealt with.
Yeah.
But sometimes the states are so intense that I almost can't. I'm lying in bed and I can't get into a position that's comfortable.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, what is that part of you that has helped you dealt with stuff? What is that part of you?
I don't really know. I mean,
know, that's why I'm asking. Yeah.
I mean, there's something that's keeping me.
Yeah. Well, guess what? That part of you, that is your literally, you're connected to this amazing, limitless intelligence, wisdom.
Yeah.
So you are connected to it, and that takes care of you, even in spite of your head being where it is.
And I'm
I
starting.
really want you to hear. Yeah, I really want you to hear that. Do you think you could hear what I'm saying?
About the intelligence, yeah.
Yeah, and the wisdom.
Yeah, I think I'm starting to realize that, and I think that for a long time I felt abandoned by life, because things, even when I was in non-duality and the principles, things didn't get better for quite a long time. So I kind of felt abandoned. But now I'm starting to realize that there is something that's, you know, I had an experience the other day. I don't really do drugs, but my partner brought home a joint.
Yeah.
And it had like some chemical in it, some extra chemical or something, and it was not a very nice experience. But what I noticed was, during that unpleasant experience, my wisdom was telling me, go outside and stand in the rain and do this breathing. And as it was happening, I was aware of, oh my God, my wisdom's telling me to do these things, and it's helping me through the experience.
I am so glad you had that experience. And you know what? Now that you've had that experience, now you know with certainty that it's there.
Yeah.
It's there. So now you need to trust it, have respect for it, and appreciate and look in that direction.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I may be crazy out here, but I know deep inside me, thank God, there's something that got me through that whole crazy smoking a joint thing. And that was probably the best thing for you to do, is get out in the rain to help you kind of come outside of your head.
Yeah.
To help you get through that experience. That is in you and will never let you down. So if you could just see that, have an insight about that piece, and your reference point now is that you've seen it already.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as I'm concerned, it's a done deal, that you know it's inside of you, but now you need to start to really appreciate it. Wow, it really, really is there. And I think just let that be. And yeah, your mind's going to get crazy sometimes, but let that be okay too. Okay, I'm in the turbulence. I'm stealing that word now. I'm in the turbulence, but thank God I have this other part of me that's going to help me get through that.
Yeah.
How does that sound?
No, that sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch this back and.
Yeah. And that helped me too. See, I've even with all that I know and teach, there are times when that's all I hang on to. That's it. That's all I can hang on to. And that has seen me through some dark times.
And I like when you said that you experience turbulence, but there's something that's, what did you said, that's calm at the same time?
Yes, yeah. Well, have you ever, I lived in the South, so they had tornadoes. And one time I was driving and the tornado was kind of above us, but we were in the center. So it was weird. All the cars, we all stopped. And because you knew something was up.
Yeah.
And there was not even a leaf shook. The stillness was eerie. It was eerie. And it was amazing because after the stillness was there for a few minutes, I knew all hell was going to break loose. But for that moment, and then because it was far enough up, it moved our cars sideways. I'll never forget this, but it didn't do more than that. So all of our cars are going sideways, and then it took off. See, these violent tornadoes, in the core is this amazing stillness, even in the middle of a tornado. And that's us. Even in the middle of this turbulent tornado swirling around, there's this, and people talk about the eye of the storm, because the eye is the stillness, the calm inside of the turbulence. And see, that's us. You have that. You have that calm, that eye of the storm is inside of you. And you can take that to the bank. That is a certainty. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. You take care.
And you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom. That was just such a profound note to end the call on. And Tom, thank you for your question. I was really impacted by that. So I believe the whole group felt that.
Oh, absolutely. That's for all of us.
Yeah, I definitely felt it. A delicious note to end on. And I know that we're all sending you love.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah. So thank you, Cathy. Thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate you giving us a lot extra. So thank you.